pause, take a breath before you respond. And then I went, yeah, remember, have
Yes.
you read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning?
Yes.
What a
Yes.
beautiful book. And one,
Oh,
one of the things that I remembered most vividly from that, it's a beautiful book. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your freedom to choose. Um,
yes.
so all of those situations that you shared just then, these opportunities, are you consciously the coaching or the training or the, let's call it, the discipline that I have in myself, is to have the awareness to go before you dive in and respond as the person that your
Yup.
emotions, that deep-seated reptilian brain is telling you to be. Just pause for a second, give yourself a moment of grace and breathe, and then let's see how you respond.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm aiming for. And if you think about how breathwork, ice is so powerful, that stimulus of getting in the cold, that's that stress response. Now, what am I going to do here? I can clench up, and it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And then I get out, and I'm like, that was a poor showing. Or am I going to slow it down? Am I going to be able to take that breath? And so many people will be like, oh, I did breath work. I can handle any situation. Have you practiced? Are you familiar with these tools? So if you're not familiarizing yourself with these situations, you are going to find a useless tool when you try to utilize it. Practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So if you are practicing something improperly, which is what all of these overreactions are, is just an improper practice, you're going to find and to everyone out there, when you try and bring a change to your brain, it is normal for your brain to resist it because your brain likes familiarity. It likes making the same choices, which is why it's hard not to fall into that habit. And the goal is to catch yourself before the loop starts again. If you fail, that's okay. You'll have another chance.
Mm.
Unless you don't, and I'm not saying like if a car is coming, if you need to fight or flight, like don't sit and ponder, should I get out of the way of this car? Is that the flexible point? No, get the hell out of the way of the car. Like don't pause and take a breath. Reaction is absolutely necessary in those points. Jump out of the way.
Thank
But
you for
if you
saying that, mate. That's beautiful. Hang on a minute.
this
There's a car coming really fast. Should I pause? No, no, no.
yes. No,
Get
no.
out
In,
of the
in
way.
those situations, get the hell out of the way. But so say
Screw
anxiety.
you, Viktor Frankl. I'm done.
Yes. No, yeah. I just do it. Like
No
at that
disrespect.
point,
Viktor, no
no,
disrespect.
no, no. I think he'd appreciate it. Um, but when talking to someone else, like how are you going to know to practice and pause unless you have someone to practice and pause with?
Mm.
And this goes back to the negotiation thing. If you and I are in the middle of a negotiation and you've worked with me, you're not going to breathe through your mouth the entire time. You will never inhale through your mouth. Well, at least that's our goal, is not to do that. You won't compromise your posture. When I finish talking, you will take a breath in through the nose. You'll say what you're going to say, and at the end of your sentence, you take in another breath through the nose. Your feet are flat on the floor at 90 degrees. Your hips are at 90 degrees. Your elbows are at 90 degrees. You're sitting all the way back into your chair. You're telling your body, I'm in a good place. But in the West, we like to lean forward and we compromise our posture. We tell our nervous system we're a little stressed out and we start to breathe through our mouth. We get excited and suddenly you have a little bit less in the acuity tank to pull from.
Mm.
So acknowledge that that's where you're at. Take that breath that Frankl encourages us to take and slow down that moment. Now, you won't be able to do this every time, but if anxiety is something you're working with, practicing something like the Wim Hof Method can be invaluable. You're breathing fast. That moment of the breathe up, that looks really similar to an asthma or anxiety attack. It's just fast, it's uncontrolled. And what do we do when we hit that point? Well, we take a breath in, relax to neutral, and we slow that moment down. When you're anxious, can you step into that because you've been practicing it? Can you slow that moment down and hold your breath, even if it's for an extra 5 or 10 seconds than you're used to? If when getting overly stimulated, can you realize that you may be unconsciously breathing yourself up, which is never going to be beneficial? Take that moment to pause, slow down, take that moment, and then try and step back into it. That's not removing yourself from it, and it's completely discreet unless you're being like, hold on. No one's going to notice that you've just slowed your respiratory rate down. Taking that moment for you and practicing with these tools, practicing for the outcome. That's why there's no one method that can fix everything. That's why I've studied so many different protocols. The methods in freediving and Buteyko can serve you everywhere. The Wim Hof method, you have chronic pain, autoimmune illness. It's one of the top ones for that. Helps optimize your blood pressure and cardiovascular system. Hell yeah, that's great. That's 20 minutes a day. You have another 23 hours and 40 minutes. You need to be not necessarily taking giant leaps and bounds, but I love the concept of 1%, even 0.5%. Can we shift by just that minute amount? And within that shift, can we accept that it may be uncomfortable to shift there? That you're going to fail when you're aiming for that shift, but still utilizing the breath, doing our best to give ourselves the most hopeful outcome, knowing that it might fail, and being willing to try again even if it does. So if you're looking for breathwork for anxiety, you have to practice breathwork that may make you anxious so that you can become familiar with how your body is going to respond. My anxiety was anger because of the bar fights. Yeah. So I would get really ready to punch someone. So I had to practice with that anger, practice breathing into that spot, trying to elicit that emotional response. And then once I'm up there, calming myself down again. So it's more akin to that like allergy, mild exposure therapy to help reduce that outcome. I just
wrote exposure therapy. That's beautiful.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah. Hey, just to close the door on the clothesline a minute ago, I believe you almost shared your negotiation coaching. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of it.
If we reflect on this past 10 minutes, I was going, holy cow, this is negotiation coaching right now, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Would there be anything else that you would add to the negotiation coaching? Because I want to dive into a little bit of the mental health stuff, which is, you read the stuff that's coming out at the moment. It's prevalent, it's going up. If we look at potentially the effects of social media, it seems though it's not positive. There's some great things, but there's some challenges from mental health perspective. Anxious Self, that great book just came out. It's changing the way that we think about schools now. We're trying to keep tech out of schools, which is great. I'm a parent, you're a parent. I'm sure you have issues with your kids and technology. And you don't.
I do.
Go. So before we go into that, where you feel confident sharing, is there
it's the same.
We should. Is it? Go on.
It's the same. So I am fortunate enough to have worked with one of the top neuropsychologists in the UK. His name is Dr. Richard Coates. Dr. Richard Coates.
Got it.
He's one of the top ACT practitioners. He's a pro-social god. He might blush if he heard that I said that, but he is amazing. And he works with people with brain injuries. And he reached out to me because of breath to find out how he could use breathwork for brain injuries, and found out that I had brain injuries and I had been using breathwork for brain injuries. And we talk about, and this is for mental health too. For those of you out there who aren't musically inclined, this is how I see it. So I'm going to put it from my perspective. If this doesn't fit your perspective, please find a perspective that does. I use a state of harmony and dissonance. So if I'm having a bad day, my brain is starting to play a song that does not benefit me. If then I'm looking at my phone and I put myself in an improper posture, head forward over hips, shoulders slumped, I can't take a proper breath, my posture is now telling me I'm in a bad or anxious place. So I've now harmonized with my thoughts. And if I'm breathing suboptimally because I'm hunched over, which is how it's going to happen, I've now completed the dark harmony. My breath, my posture, and my brain are all telling me things are going wrong. So things are definitely going to be going wrong. But if my mind is playing tricks on me, and that's Charlie. Charlie is that voice says, you're not going to make it. You're an imposter. I'm like, thank you, Charlie. I love your point of view. I'm glad you think I'm going to fail today, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Thanks, bud. And like, of course, Charlie would say that gnarly shit. Of course he would. But if my mind is doing that, I'm going to put my hand right here where my hips meet my thighs. I'm going to gently push myself upright, push myself back into my chair. And now I'm creating a state of dissonance with that that suboptimal state. And now I'm going to slow my breath down. In for 4 seconds, out for 6 seconds through my nose, which is a more parasympathetic leaning breath. It doesn't have to be 4-6. It's just an exhale that's 1.5 times longer than your inhale. So it can be 6-9. It can go as long as you'd like. So I slow my breath down. Lateral expansion of the lower ribs, lateral expansion of the upper ribs. Eyes parallel with the floor. Nice and slow. So now my breath and my posture is telling me I'm okay. And it gives me just a little bit more of an emotional well to have that conversation with my mind. To slow it down, to maybe not react as much, and maybe to accept that this is where I'm at and I should probably go take an ice bath. Because that's usually what I do if I'm in a state like this. All right, or go hold 2 ice cubes in my hands because I'm going to change the internal stimulus to an external one. But say I'm having the best day of my life. That's a beautiful harmony. My posture is good. My breath is good. That's a great harmony. But now I'm looking at my phone. And I'm creating a dissonant state now. I'm breathing through my mouth because I'm hunched over. My nervous system is a little upset because I'm leaning forward. My posture and my breath are telling me I'm unsafe. So my mind goes, is something wrong? Oh shit, something's wrong. So you can emphasize or de-emphasize any of these states that you find yourself in. You just first have to admit that that state is of your making. Even if your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your wife or your husband did something nasty, or you're going through a divorce, or your kid said that mean thing, you can do your best to give yourself the best opportunity, the most fertile field to handle it. With an acquired brain injury, a traumatic brain injury, they gave me all these cognitive tools. I couldn't fucking remember that I taught breath work. You're giving me a cognitive tool to work with a cognitive. Okay, this is awesome. Let's do this. I don't even remember that we met you last week. And you're like, do you remember the exercises? No, I don't fucking remember. I'm just pissed off. But I can remember sit up straight.
I can tell remember... you did theater, mate. Go on, sorry to interrupt, but...
Close the mouth. Okay. Brain going crazy. Body safe. Breath safe. Eyes focused on one thing, because anxious people's eyes search for a threat. Okay, I'm focused on one thing. And it's the same thing someone who's negotiating is trying to work about. They may not have an acquired brain injury, but they're still trying to keep themselves in the most optimal state possible to deal with the input they're getting. Now, if you're negotiating with Americans, I'm completely sorry. Our culture fucking sucks when it comes to negotiations, because unlike a lot of the Japanese, Asian, and Middle Eastern and European cultures, we're negotiating to get the fucking best deal we can. And a lot of the times, those other cultures I mentioned are negotiating for a relationship, for a long-term relationship where you may get the best today, but next time, come eat dinner with my family. This is my family. This is who I am, a real person. Come eat with us. Next time, it'll be a little more equitable. And to go for that long-term shift, one, we have to know who you're negotiating with. Are they cutthroat? If they're cutthroat, it's a completely different maneuver than are they looking for a relationship? Is this relationship equitable, and can it be long-term? If so, the Japanese negotiating teams are the best in the world. And there are other people out there who are going to be like, oh, no, they're not. Yes, they fucking are. They're top tier. And they sit up straight. They breathe through their nose. They don't let themselves enter an emotional state. If someone does, someone else begins talking, because you don't make good choices when you're emotional. They will stop a meeting, go have a powwow, come back just to tell you no. Like, they're amazing at what they do. Exactly. And like, they don't lean forward. They're not showing in the Western world, we lean forward to show interest, but that puts your posture in a compromised state. So they're not going to do that. Yeah. And so it's cultural, it's habitual, and it's the same tactics we use when we negotiate with ourselves when we have anxiety, a brain injury, stress, pain. Can you put yourself in the best state? And usually that's, for me, the top 3 points for proper breathing are posture, proper biomechanics, and working your CO2 threshold. I don't care what breathwork protocol you do, without those 3 things, you're not going to achieve as optimal as an outcome as you'd like.